Welcome to Italy. We are in a town just outside Genoa. The Mediterranean Sea is just over there behind my shoulder, and we have been invited out here by a relatively startup brand called Officine Mattio, about 10 years old, and we've come out here to film how their bikes are made, except when we actually got to the factory we weren't allowed to film. We managed to film some bits and pieces, so this video is going to be a collection of a few interesting tidbits from our video that kind of tells the story of where I think the brand is right now. We've been invited out to ride a Gran Fondo that they sponsored, which is an amazing time. I've ridden some of their bikes. We've met an awful lot of the people behind it. We've spoken to some of the investors. That's a fascinating conversation. And we've also spoken to a few people in the factory as well. So I think in all, this video is going to be pretty fascinating, but a bit segmented. I just realised that right about now in the video, you're wondering who the hell is Officine Mattio? I have never heard of this bike brand. Well, probably the better question to ask is, who are Officine Mattio? Because they are a collection of individuals that all come together with this common dream of trying to bring manufacturing of bicycles back into Italy and sort of transcend the cottage industry, because of course there are some smaller brands out there. Now this all starts with a chap called Giovanni. He used to run a bike shop, and he was the one that really went out and met all these people and collected this talent to eventually have all the ingredients that he needed to make this brand. After that, there is Davido. He is head of marketing, the guy that's behind organising Gran Fondos and all sorts of things. Then, crucially, a chap called Roberto, who ran a really high-end paint shop, and he was the one responsible for all these elaborate paint jobs that you're seeing coming out of Officine Mattio. And then we have Riccardo, an ex-pro racer, who really started to import on what he wanted from the designs. We have Luca, who runs a cycle touring business and then currently brought that business into the Officine Mattio, so they also have a tour guide business as part of this brand, quite unique. But most crucially, perhaps, they found someone that had the carbon expertise in Pedemonte Composites, and we went there to go and meet up with Chiara.
Sono Chiara Pedemonte e sono la sorella di Sergio Pedemonte, che è la persona che ha bene o male messo in piedi questa azienda. Inizialmente Sergio ha fatto tanta gavetta, ha lavorato con suo padre, mio padre, Pedemonte Marco, il quale lavorava per l'automotive. Loro creavano comunque elementi nelle macchine da corsa e da lì si sono evoluti. Mio fratello, portando avanti la sua passione per la bicicletta, ha pensato di portare il suo lavoro anche nel ciclismo, nella telaistica, per Officine Mattio, che ha ben accolto questa iniziativa e ha portato avanti appunto la produzione di questi telai, che risultano essere un passo avanti rispetto a quanto veniva prodotto fino a poco tempo prima.
The construction method that they're using at Officine Mattio, we haven't really covered on this channel before, so let me try and talk you through it. They're using a method called the tube and wrapping technique. Now, Pedemonte Composites that you see here are also famous for making lots of other really top-end carbon components. When we were there, we saw front splitters of rally cars, we saw ladders being made for high-end luxury yachts, and that's a bit of a weird one. They had an autoclave there, they were making racing seats. They also had their own bicycle brand called Pedemonte, and that bicycle brand was all about very fine custom geometry, millimeter perfect custom geometry. More on that in a second. And then out of that became the work with Officine Mattio, and Officine Mattio now makes up the bulk of their work, but they still maintain that really high-end automotive because that's kind of a bit of their heritage and where they learn things as well. So the construction method that they use is a more traditional tube and wrap design. So they use mould to make the generic tubing, the down tube, the top tube, and then they use various bits of forging to make the common components. So the bottom bracket, the dropouts, the top of the head tube, interestingly, and then they bond it all together, basically just glue it all together in the jig. Once they have it all glued together, they then go back with other layers of carbon fiber and wrap it around those tubing to reinforce it. There's an awful lot of labor involved. Every single stage needs aligning and checking, but also an awful lot of sanding. And the room that we saw there was, a big dedicated extraction chamber sanding facility with all sorts of manners of hand tools and big tools to try and sand off all the excess glues and resins and get everything down to a nice smooth finish. Now there's not an awful lot of detail on the Officine Mattio website about how they're doing this construction, but on the Pedemonte Cycles website there's a little bit more detail about how they're getting the compaction by using the compression bags on the inside of those tubes in a fairly unique way. And when we were there, they really didn't want us to film how they were achieving that. The inside of the frame, if we were to inspect it, looks quite messy compared to what we're used to. But the outside of the frame is absolutely beautiful, as you'd expect. And we're going to hand over now to Davide, talk us through how he learned his craft.
I started a few years ago by helping the other, and then learned, and today I am on the jig. I cut the tube, put it together on the jig, and make the bicycle. For example, we check the sides of the frame like 4 or 5 times before gluing it.
And in your own words, what would you say is the biggest difference of what you do here compared to what we're familiar with seeing from Chinese brands? What makes it different?
I think it's the quality control and the thing that you can have everything under your looking, from A to Z, from the paper of carbon to the single part to the frame, and you can achieve a great tour.
This is everything, right the way from the freezer where everything is kept, and the design office is up there, which is my next question. How closely do you work with the designers?
Other particular thing is that almost everyone working here is cycling people.
Is it?
So
okay.
We used to go cycling, so we know what the other cyclists need. So it's both way. So they come up with some design, and we come up with some needs, and we match it together.
That's perfect. That's what I was really hoping to hear. So when you're thinking about, is there a better way of making this bottom bracket area? Can we integrate that into a design? That actually happens real time. What's the benefit of having so much breadth of knowledge here?
Yeah, for sure. In the beginning, everything started with the know-how from the cars. Then we moved this to the bicycle.
Thank you so much for your time, David. I really appreciate it. Here's my thinking right now. If you, imagine and put yourself in the shoes of the founder, Giovanni, were to try and start a bicycle brand who specialised in carbon fibre from scratch in 2025, how on earth would you do it? A lot of the brands that we're familiar with all started off relatively small scale. Started welding frames on a small scale, got bigger and bigger, and then as new technology came along, we started to introduce that technology piecemeal. Today, to become competitive from day one would actually be really challenging. And I think there's 2 ways that you could possibly do that. One, you could take a massive amount of investment, buy a factory, spend millions of pounds on moulds and staff training, and it could be a decade before you are profitable again. Or you do it the organic route and you try and do it piecemeal. I think what Officine Mattio are trying to do is somewhere in between. They've tried to do something organically, take an investment when it's necessary to take a bit of a leap forward. And I think as we see them today is when they've taken their first good chunk of investment. So let's hear from Scott. We're at a restaurant straight after doing the 100k Gran Fondo. Thanks for your hospitality, by the way. This is Scott McGuigan. You're the finance, I guess, behind Officine Mattio.
One of the investors, yes.
Yeah, which has come fairly recently. When did that happen?
So that happened about 20 months ago.
Brilliant. So you obviously saw an opportunity there.
Absolutely.
I just wondered if you could share with our audience what they'd probably consider to be the Dragon's Den pitch. What was the thing that captured your imagination?
One part is leisure. The world is moving to a more leisure-based platform, and I think because of that, I looked at this investment as part of that portfolio. Second, it's the artisan nature of this business. This is a very, very, very special business, and it's sort of reviving the old manufacturing of road frames in Italy. A lot of that, as you know, would be outsourced for the last 20, 25 years. And that's some of the big names that have done that too. So what we looked at is to say, okay, let's bring that back in-house. Let's do something with that. So that was the second attraction.
The second attraction.
The third attraction was just the people. I mean, you've experienced now Cuneo and Piedmont.
The Italian passion is very real.
The Italian passion is there, but it comes with the heart, They really want to make a difference, they want to make a change, and they want to take this product to market.
It definitely feels like they really want a really strong homegrown product again, like they want to bring manufacturing home.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think because of that, you know, those three things, the mix of those three things said to me, it's not just about the return on investment for me. It's actually about growing something and giving it back to the community, right? It's in the bigger space of doing that.
And when I was out on my ride today, I was talking to people, other dealers and other people here on your hospitality, and I almost feel like let down by some of the famous Italian brands that have now started to outsource. There's almost like a hunger and a thirst.
I mean, this is a journey for this company, right? This company's been around, you know, initially about 8-9 years ago, Giovanni set it up as the founder with the original shareholders. And where it's come from then to date is just one little part of that journey, and that journey will continue. And like you say, there's the passion, there's the manufacturing base to bring something back, and also too to keep that brand. I mean, the most important thing about OM is the brand. It's the brand association. You want to be part of something growing into something larger.
I can feel the fire in your belly for this project. It's amazing. Now, the really difficult thing for me to wrap my head around is just how hard this could be.
Yes.
You know, the Chinese have got a big lead on carbon manufacturing. Do you see that you've got to close a gap, or are you doing something different? Where do you see that challenge going?
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge is in different levels, let's just say. There's an obvious commercial challenge, right? And that's most manufacturers have outsourced to Asia. It's a low cost base, and then they can cross-sell back into the market at a lower price base.
You're a 10-year-old company compared to a 50-year-old company.
Exactly.
Brand awareness.
I think the second thing on that too is really when you look at where we are in the marketplace, we're at a little bit at the top end just now.
Just a little bit.
That may change in the future though.
Yeah.
You know, and that's about the brand growing, because the brand just can't grow horizontal, it needs to grow vertical. We need to speak to and listen to our customer base. When our customer base tells us niche is good, but maybe we want a different view, then we'll react to that.
I see the challenge. The thing that really blows my mind is you need a factory and a paint shop and staff training and time to iterate and time to make mistakes and time to learn from those mistakes.
The thing sometimes in manufacturing and especially in this industry, people don't appreciate what was done in the past and then what is going to in the future, right?
Interesting.
So when you look at it, the talent's there already.
Okay, you need to elaborate on that. So you found people in Italy that could work with carbon.
And this is why it's important to, you know, tell the story, right?
So what industry were they in?
So they were originally in the cycling industry.
Okay.
So back to your point, once things started to get outsourced, those artisans started to look at other industries. So looking at skiing, carbon skis, looking at carbon manufacturing for people like Pagani, etc. So there's a whole space in the carbon manufacturing. It's very mature in Italy. And all we are doing now is we're tapping into the artisans that were working for those entities. They've now upped their skills in technology and advancement and carbon, etc., manufacturing, and now we are bringing that back into the solution that we have here. So here's
the interesting lead-on question for that is, do you think you found these people in time to capture that talent and that thing and pass it on to the next generation?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that's part of bringing it all in-house, right? Because when we bring that in-house, then we can start doing apprenticeships. We can start bringing people in, and we can bring people in on the front end on the R&D side. We can bring people in the back end in the manufacturing and the paint, and in the sales side too, because sales is as important as manufacturing.
A good salesman will always argue that they're the most important. Without them, nothing else happens.
Absolutely,
yeah. And that's really, really fascinating. And I don't want to take this interview too much longer time, but is there anything else that you want to tell this audience about OM that you don't think that if there's one thing that you want to say, guys, you need to understand this,
I think one message would be, come to Cuneo, see the product, see the team, and experience Piedmont. You will then understand what the project is about.
That's brilliant. You've got to live it. Thank you so much for your time, Scott. I really
You're welcome.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Cheers.
Much appreciated.
Now, as you can imagine, there's quite a lot of the conversation I had with Scott that we couldn't even share. Some of the future ambitions and the future projects, his ideas, hopefully they're going to play out, but it's such early days yet. But I promise you, there's an awful lot of passion, ambition behind what you've just seen there.
We came here to ride the Alpi Del Mare Gran Fondo, which is in the Maritime Alps, and it's been absolutely stunning.
We've come all the way to Italy to learn about actual bikes made in Italy, and we've got to start with a bike ride on a massive scale. Quiet moment on the hills. Let's have a chat about this bike. First of all, climbs really nice. Seated, out the saddle, love that. It's not great under braking into a tight corner, so hard on the brake into a hairpin doesn't feel great. The second you let the front brake off and let it roll, it's nice again, like you unweight the front wheel, takes control. It's just a bit skittish, and I think that's because the fork isn't that stiff. I mean, I'm nitpicking here, and you've got to remember that I'm used to riding like a Time Skylon, which must have the stiffest fork in existence. There it is, last 100 metres. What an absolutely excellent day out. Loved every second.
First ever mass start event, and that was quite the adrenaline hit. If you'd asked me 6 months ago if I was going to be riding 100k through the Italian Maritime Alps, I absolutely would not have thought that was going to be possible. So that's amazing, and it's a really brave move to kind of launch the brand like this with such a big scale event. And when we've chatted to the guys about it, they were saying they expected to have maybe 500 people showing up on this first go of it, and they've actually ended up with 3,000. So I imagine that the kind of logistics and prep that's gone into that has really kind of multiplied over the period that they've been kind of doing all the planning. And actually, like, to have a closed road event, it requires a lot of participation across a lot of different administrative organisations, and they did a really lovely kind of celebration dinner on the Sunday night after the ride. And I think that's quite special, and I don't know if we would have that same support in a UK town. It's quite a small town, Mondovi, and we had kind of words from the head of the town. It might have been the mayor, gotta be honest, didn't quite catch it, but he was really passionate about the benefits of cycle tourism and what that could bring to the area. So they're really seeing it as an opportunity for them to get involved with bikes. And that's really special that you've got kind of this high-end brand collaborating with municipal organisations to bring something of this scale together. There were some local restaurants that were involved. One of the towns we went through had like an artisanal market as a feed station. And I don't know about you, but like certainly getting handfuls of artisanal cheese on my way through a town is exactly how I want to spend 100k. There was a little wine stall there as well, but that wasn't for me. But yeah, absolutely fantastic ride. Like, I couldn't stop grinning a whole way round. And loads of really strong women out as well. Like, I don't know if Italian cycling is quite as male dominated as UK cycling at this level. I'm not sure, but well, it remains to be seen.
Right now, I think it's pretty fair to say that your decision to buy an Officine Mattio bike is probably based on politics and pride more than it is on performance and cost, and they're well aware of that. Okay, the beautiful paint jobs help, but there's definitely strides to be made. For me, this feels right now like a company that has just learnt to walk, and it wants to show off to the world. It wants to invite you to sportives and wear their clothing, but they're desperately trying to generate that revenue to get to the next stage, the next part of the dream. I think that's what you're seeing in this video today, is a brand going, come on, we're ready now. Let's get where you want us to be together.
Going to visit the factories, it was really impressed upon me how invested everybody was in the process. It's a lot of it seems to be kind of a family affair. So you've got kind of the father started the original company, and then you kind of have the kids running it, and they're all involved, you know, brothers and sisters. And that also feels very Italian in terms of keeping it in the family. It is genuinely a family run business, and that extends to some of the employees as well. And they've really worked hard to create a community feel around their brand. And that ultimately is what is going to keep them kind of moving forward. You need that investment in the brand. You need trust in the brand. And one really good way of doing that is to build community around it. So yeah, to summarize, like, this event has been amazing for the bikes and the tech that we've seen, but it's actually been all of the people that are involved in that process that have enabled this to come together in the way that it has, and has made it feel so welcoming. So I'm really pro all of that, and I think it's an amazing way to build a brand.
So I'm going to finish this video off with a massive thank you to the whole team that invited us out here. The Alpi Del Mare Gran Fondo was amazing fun. It was such a great distance, 100 kilometers, closed roads. It was so much fun just to let loose over a relatively short distance. Nothing epic about it. It was just a Gran Fondo where you could just go fast and have a great time, and we did. It was brilliant. I'd thoroughly recommend it. Don't be put off by the relatively short distance. Get out here and enjoy those roads. It's been brilliant meeting the team. It is a big, extensive team. It is definitely the sense of a network of highly passionate and skilled individuals that have all somehow found each other in their career with a shared vision, and they're trying to make that happen. And I really do think that's the way forward in modern business. You need to pull in lots of skills and expertise from lots of areas, and it really does feel like Giovanni is building his team to take this to where he wants it to be. At this point in the video, I want to present a counter method to what you've just seen so far. Now, the brand I'm about to show you is called Gregario, and they were exhibiting at the expo of this race, and they've completely taken a different tack to Officine Mattio. Rather than trying to be a big global brand and with lots of different bikes in the range, they've got one bike, and they're going to do that one bike really, really well. What makes this really unique is that they have come up with a custom geometry, but full monocoque. Now, if you don't know what that means, let me try and talk it through. The full monocoque, rather than like the time bikes that you've seen on our channel where the front triangle comes out of the mould and you then glue in the rear triangle, this is complete monocoque. So you open the mould and an entire bike comes out. So you don't have to glue in the rear triangle. So the mold is quite three-dimensional. Now, what's really interesting is that this company uses an app that scans your body and works out exactly the geometry, millimeter perfect, that you need. It takes that data and then feeds it into a program that gives them the details of the exact custom mold that they need to make your frame. So if you look at this little YouTube short, it's the only bit that I can find on the internet of this process. You can just see here and here where they've put inserts into the mold to create essentially a custom mold in order to make a custom geometry bike. Absolutely fascinating. But it didn't stop there. Take a look at what they did with the bottom bracket. We've got some cutaways here. I've just been asking them how they mold these in, and they're really proud of it. First of all, they use, best described as an adjustable mold, so they can do a monocoque chassis, but to any size, millimeter perfect. So definitely some kind of proprietary adjustable mold. But what they're doing with the bottom bracket is that these inserts are screwed into the mold and then the carbon laid on top of them. So these are actually integral to the actual frame itself. They're not glued in afterwards. Maybe a glimpse at the future. Now, this is small volume, niche product, very specialist, cottage industry, but still made in Italy. Completely different approach. I'm going to finish this video with an invitation for you to leave feedback on your thoughts down in that comment section. Please go and check out their website. Consider the points that I've made in this video and the challenges involved in trying to bring production back to Italy. And yeah, please put your feedback down below. I know that the team at OM will definitely be keen to read it. So get started, get typing. Look forward to seeing what you've got to say. Thanks for watching. Take it easy.